Hello, everybody. This is a presentation on fluorescent minerals, sort of like an introduction, and I'll go through a couple of the places that fluorescent minerals come from, an overview on how fluorescent minerals fluoresce, some of the key words, some affecting factors, and some other fun stuff. But most of all, this is going to be a show and tell of some truly amazing specimens from around the world. Okay, so to start off, who am I? I am Nicholas Viltrakis, and I am currently the president of the Fluorescent Mineral Society's Midwest chapter. And as you can see there, I've been a gem and mineral collector since about 1980. However, I want to let you know that I am not a scientist. There are plenty of people in this organization that have an immense amount of skill at figuring out what's going on mineralogically and all of these things. And scientifically, I am not that guy. I got into this because I really like the colors, and I think it's pretty awesome that there's a range of magic just outside of our human perception that we can see by this ultraviolet light. I was a professional photographer for about 2 decades now, and I also am a musician. I also work for Johnson and Johnson as a business process analyst. So that's a little bit of my background right there. But again, I just want to stress the fact that this is not going to be heavy on the science because I am not a scientist. I am really out there for the aesthetic purposes of all this stuff. And in general, I started off because I got a UV black light, end quote, from a friend of mine who was cleaning out his house. And this was just about the time that the pandemic for coronavirus had started. So the black lights that you get are kind of cool. It's a 395 or so nanometer tube light that exhibits or emits UV radiation, UV light. And they're the kinds you see lighting up the Led Zeppelin posters from the 70s. Or if it's blacklight bowling, things like that. Maybe you're in a dance club and they have some fun stuff. So when I was on eBay, out there buying rocks like I do, because I collect non-fluorescent minerals as well. Prior to this life, I was an opal hoarder as well. But I found something that said fluorescent, and I decided, well, that's going to be cool. So I purchased this piece of Willemite calcite from Franklin, New Jersey, and it came, and sure enough, it did glow next to my cheap 395 nanometer blacklight. And I was hooked. I thought that was the coolest. Just looks like a normal rock otherwise, and under the UV light, all this other stuff pops out. So that was March of 2020. Very quickly, I found out on the internet that the coolest kind of rocks were glowing under the shortwave light. And so by 4 months into the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown, I had purchased myself a moderately expensive shortwave UV lamp from Ingenious Designs, and I had collected this amount of UV minerals. Also gone through my house and found anything else that was glowing under UV light. So that was a little bit like 4 months or so, five months total from the beginning. Well, this is today. So I have quite a few fluorescent minerals, and as a matter of fact, from March of 2020 until the I guess October of 2023, I had amassed a serious collection and gone from somebody that just found out that this existed to being the president of the Fluorescent Mineral Society's Midwest chapter. So again, I was thinking to myself, that escalated quickly. Not to flex or anything like that, but I do have a basement full of rocks and musical equipment and camera gear, things like that. So this is what I'm looking like roughly today. Some of these images were kind of recent. All right, so enough about me. So what's going on here? How do fluorescent minerals work? How does this happen? Historically, in 1852, Sir George Gabriel Stokes discovered that fluorite and other substances would change invisible light beyond the violet end of the visible spectrum into visible. He called this phenomenon fluorescence, and the term is still used today. The mineral fluoresces when exposed to an external energy source, such as ultraviolet radiation, ultraviolet light, X-rays, electron beams, or mechanical stress, sometimes called triboluminescence. The energy from the source causes electrons in the mineral to temporarily jump to a higher orbit in their atomic structure, which is called the valence level. When electrons return to their original orbit, they release the absorbed energy as a different wavelength of light, which is longer and less energetic than the original source. This produces visible color change in the mineral, which is known as fluorescence. Here's some examples of the types of lighting sources that are used to create this energy transfer. Back in the day, you see a lot of people would take these medical grade medium wave ultraviolet trans-illuminator devices, and they'll rewire them to have the correct power source to power the shortwave light bulbs. So we got a bunch of that. Then a little bit later, we got into the situation of handheld, and this is the dark light that I have, which really was one of the instrumental things in getting me excited about the whole process. So this is a tube lamp as well, but it's self-contained, battery packed, and you can walk around with it, which is really awesome. Even later, we got into situations where now this LED technology is allowing us to create a very narrow band of the ultraviolet light in all three bands at this point, and they come in this handheld, easily portable little flashlight. This one here is from Ingenious Designs as well, although there's a lot of other manufacturers. And finally, the last one we have on here is a UV light that I ended up getting for $7.50 each. It is a filtered long wave 365 nanometer light. This is monumental because the uh, costs of getting into this hobby is quite expensive, or had been in the past, right? Originally, all you had was lights that were someplace inside, or kind of like lab lights, things like that. These trans illuminators can cost a bit of money, $300 or so. The portable lights were $400, just like this flashlight is $400 with the four LEDs in there. So now to have something that is, by the way, this is a shortwave light, which is why it's so expensive. The long wave lights had been around $100, and there were some lawsuits going on that created a issue with selling them. So the price was artificially inflated for a while. But now, with the proliferation of this technology, we have some cheap alternatives to creating these fantastic wavelengths. This is a little graph, a little diagram from just the obviously pretty simple on how this works. You got your ultraviolet light source, which is high energy hitting the sample, and then it raises the electrons, which fall back and emit the visible light in the visible spectrum. Oops. What are we talking about when we're talking about the UV light? So up top, we have here the full band of the electromagnetic spectrum. And just above the visible light, we have the ultraviolet. And for our purposes, what we're talking about is the long wave, which is closest to visible, the middle wave, and the short wave. So short wave is between 200 and 280, usually around 254, 255 is the wavelength that they use for what we call short wave. Midwave is 280 nanometers to 315 nanometers. This is a newer technology, so they are around 300, 310, 313, something like that. Most of mine are around 310. And the long wave, the longest of the UV waves, which is 315 to 400. And there is still a significant change between the wavelengths in there. So the 395, like we saw with the black light, doesn't do as much as the 365 filtered that we'll see in a lot of the photos that I'm about to give you or show you. So again, more on how does it happen. Although most minerals don't fluoresce when pure, almost any mineral can glow under the right conditions. We'll see some about that with temperature later. Some examples of fluorescent minerals include aragonite, calcite, fluorite, powlite, scheelite, sodalite, willemite, and zircon. And another disclaimer, again, I've only read this stuff and I'm not a scientist, so I guarantee you I'm going to mispronounce some of these names and stumble over them because they're incredibly complicated. Fluorescence can also be affected by impurities in the mineral called activators. Different activators can cause the same mineral to fluoresce in different colors. For example, manganese is an activator that can cause willemite to fluoresce green, as we'll see in a minute, while other minerals that use manganese as an activator include pectolite, which tends to be orange, hardystonite, which tends to be blue, axonite, which would be red, esperite, which will be yellow, wollastonite, which is an orange, yellow, and sphalerite, which comes in a multitude of colors. Other activators include uranium and some rare earth minerals. Some buzzwords, words that we'll use to talk about fluorescence, or you can in the scientific sense. An activator or a luminescence center is an entity that can provide enough energy transmission for photoluminescence. That's 1.67 to 3.3 electron volts, usually as an impurity in the mineral. For example, chromium-3 in ruby. Co-activators or a sensitizer is an entity that absorbs the photon energy and transfers that to the activator entity that then allows its electrons to transition to a lower valence level. A quencher, on the other hand, is an element that suppresses fluorescence. For example, iron 2 and iron 3, cobalt, and nickel. As we just talked about in the previous slide, here's a piece of willemite where manganese impurities activate fluorescence in this willemite from New Jersey. Fun fact, Franklin is called the fluorescent mineral capital of the world. It yields more fluorescent minerals than any other location. Manganese is the impurity activator in this pink rock too, the pink portions. In this case, the fluorescence in calcite as well as green and willemite. So manganese is the activator in both of these. Fluorescence is self-activating in a few minerals. For example, the fluorescence is a natural property of autunite itself, not a resulting impurity, not a result of an impurity rather. So autunite fluoresces consistently no matter where it's from. And here you can see it. It contains the element uranium, and thanks to uranium's uranal ions, the autunite consistently fluoresces green. Second fun fact, this is how the miners can find it. Same thing works for opals, although they're not using the uranal ions to detect them. Let's go through some common examples of what you might see in collections of fluorescent minerals. I didn't write any of this content. This came from the Fluorescent Mineral website, uvminerals.org, under the Common Fluorescent Minerals tab. Starting off with the one that created it all here, we got fluorite. And I'm not going to go into detail on all of these because I do have a lot of slides and a lot of really cool rocks to show you. So what I'm going to do is kind of go in and touch on a few of them, and we can go back. And again, this PowerPoint presentation will be available afterwards for perusal if you'd like to get in any more detail. So fluorite, again, the one we talked about at the beginning. It's in a lot of colors and almost always fluoresces. Calcite's one of the most common fluorescent minerals, and the most interesting thing about this is that with the introduction of the mid-wave frequency, the mid-wave bandwidth that we've got for UV minerals, a lot more calcite is glowing in a very compelling way, which is making this a very good time to either have a lot of calcite or go and find them. We have aragonite, which I always want to pronounce aragonite, is a carbonate mineral, and it's formed by precipitations. Barite is a barium sulfate mineral, and this is a fun one because it's fluorescent due to the activators in it, the impurities, which is fun because I got a friend named Alina who will oftentimes find a very nice barite crystal that does not fluoresce, and she'll get right up on it and shine light and is disappointed every time. So there's an ongoing joke at the shows if we find one that glows. Agrolite is a relatively rare mineral found in Kippawa alkaline complex in Quebec, Canada. And so this is a very pretty one. I brought a sample of this today. It's a fairly common addition to a lot of displays. We have the apatite group, cerussite, chalcedony or chalcedony. This one's not a true mineral itself, but a loose reference to several varieties of silicon dioxides. We have corundum, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. We have esperite. Esperite is a rare and very sought after mineral, which only is found in 2 locations in the world: Parker Shaft in the Franklin mine in New Jersey and El Dragon mine in Bolivia. And in Bolivia, it only appears as microcrystals. So esperite is one of the coveted pieces that people pay a lot of money for. And I brought one of those today as well. Hardystonite. This one also was thought to occur only in the Franklin mine in New Jersey. However, the rare calcium zinc silicate was also found in the Desert View mine in California. It's a really pretty blue, and it's an interesting one. You have the halite opal, which is a water clear opal. Also green. Hydrozincite, an oxidation that is a product of zinc ores, and a lot of zinc mines have the fluorescence due to the zinc element. Opal, common opal. Pyromorphite, this is another one that we're now getting into because of the proliferation of the midwave UV. I just bought 2 specimens of pyromorphite from a friend in China 2 days ago, it was, which was pretty neat. So now that we got this midwave bandwidth going, we have a lot more options to collect. We have a scapolite, which has got a lot of different members to its family and is a wonderful looking mineral. Some of these are tenebrescent and phosphorescent, and I brought an example of that today as well. Very cool. Scheelite and selenite. Selenite's cool because it's a really pretty crystal, and it also has a lot of phosphorescence. Specifically, some transparent selenites also exhibit an hourglass pattern under UV that's not visible under natural light. This is super neat, and it's detailed in some of the UV Waves magazine that have a lot of information on how this zoning happens. But I did happen to bring one, whoops, for you. This is one out of my own collection, and that cool hourglass is phosphorescent and fluorescent, and only shows up when you're shining the light on it. We can take a look at that. Smithsonite. This one's neat because later on we're going to talk about the wavelength and the difference that it creates in the reactions of the stones. I have a piece of Smithsonite from Mexico myself that will show two different colors, or maybe three if you want to get fuzzy on the blue to purple spectrum. But under the long wave light, it's red, and under shortwave, it is blue in the case that I have. So we'll be taking a look at one of those later. Sodalite is also a good one. These tend to be or can be phosphorescent and also tenebrescent, which is really neat. And so this is a popular one with a lot of collectors, and also comes in quite a few places from around the world. This one here being shown is from Canada. Tugtapite, reindeer blood, a rare beryllium aluminum tetrosilicate found primarily in Greenland. So like this is also one of the coveted collecting specimens that people love due to, I guess, its rarity. And so the piece you see here is a pretty cool one, and I brought this to show you. We also have Wellamite, and Wellamite is a very extremely bright green fluorescent mineral, and this is the one that got me going when I saw it next to my 395 nanometer tube. This will often show up under any type of fluorescent light, which is fantastic. UV, fluorescent, that is. It comes in a lot of colors. It can. The stuff that comes out of Australia is amazing due to the activators that are in it, and we'll see some of those in the Australia section of minerals from around the world. This one's just green, like a lot of them they are in New Jersey. Sphalerite is awesome. I went on a bender for a while collecting sphalerite when I thought I had lost one of my pieces. Turns out it was misplaced. But the part about sphalerite that I really like is that it is in a lot of colors, which is really cool. Horn mine, as you see here, but it's also phosphorescent, which is pretty cool. I think they call it afterglow, according to famed scientist Glenn Wachunas, because apparently it has something to do with a thermal dissipation, whereas the actual phosphorescence is more of like a biochemical kind of thing. But again, I am not a scientist, and we do have videos that you can check out that'll explain some of that. Tremolite is a neat one too. I highlighted this one because it is a fun mineral from around the world. Mainly in New York is where you'll see a lot of them. And this one's interesting because it's slightly hazardous. They're all part of the asbestos family, asbestos. Wollastonite we have. Also caliche. I'm highlighting this one because it's not a mineral, but it's more of like a mineral deposit, a natural cement of calcium carbonate binding other materials together. And it too can be phosphorescent, which is cool. So it's kind of like another added color, not a true mineral, of course, but when you're looking for the most colors in the smallest package, like I like to look for, this is something that's going to add at least one more to any cool specimen. Mostly you'll see this from stuff out west, and I have some examples of that too from the American Southwest. Okay, so that's going through the basic minerals, right? The ones you'll most commonly see. If you want more information, there's a lot of resources out there, which is where I sourced a lot of my stuff for. This is where I do the research. Mindat, of course, a fantastic. I'm sure most of the people that are familiar with rocks and minerals are all over this one already, but it does have sections for fluorescence as well. So there's a lot of helpful resources there. Nature's Rainbows. I use this one when I already know that it's fluorescent and I go into Nature's Rainbows and I'll type the name of it in and try to figure out what color it is or where it's coming from, things like that. It's a good resource. And of course, anything in the Franklin area, which is the fluorescent capital of the world, the Franklin Ogden Mineral Society also has a lot of very, very good detailed information from any of the minerals that are found in that area. Let's get into some notable affecting factors. Other than the impurities that we call activators, we can also have a distinct affecting factor by wavelength. Big visual here. We've got the visible light on the right, and on the left we have our ultraviolet, which are the different wavelengths as we talked about in the original slide that we had a couple of moments ago. But this can create, due to the power, the energy in the frequency of these UV lights, a different, I guess, amount of transfer of energy from the electrons going to different valence levels. So here's a Challenger Cave, Mexico piece of calcite. This one's awesome. I didn't get to bring this one because it's buried under quite a bit of rocks in a pile in my house, but I did bring some small Challenger Cave chips to show you. But this one will exhibit some pretty awesome three colors in depending on which wavelength you have. So that's a cool one. It's also incredibly phosphorescent. Another one that'll change colors here, this one from Afghanistan. You can just tell the different kind of looks to each one based off of the wavelength that you're shining at it. I really enjoy how the phlogopite in this case is changing colors from yellow in shortwave all the way to deeper orange in long wave. Also, you notice in the midwave, the calcite's popping out there as a fuchsia, which is amazing. Normally, when before the midwave lights were really a big deal, especially in LED, we only really saw the short wave on the right or on the left and the long wave on the right. Here's another witherite. This is not the yellow, but the small lower right corner where it's blue in short wave, it's green in medium wave, and slightly yellow in long wave. It just fascinates me about how the same stone under different lighting sources can be different colors. This one's from England. Coincidentally, witherite's slightly toxic as well, so I didn't bring that one. Here's an interesting specimen that I have, which I absolutely adore, these San Bernardino, California stones. Now, this is from a private a private collection zone, so you can't actually get to it, and the specific location I'm not allowed to give out. But in the short wave, it does have four distinct colors that are the kinds that everybody wants to see in their crayon box. In midwave, however, it comes to that amazing fuchsia, and then in the long wave, we even have some yellow, which I'm not exactly even sure what this is. And to that matter, I did bring a piece of this today, but the blue, the light blue, it hasn't been identified either. And I don't have enough pieces with this concentrated light blue to smash them up into grain size pieces and send them off to the X-ray spectrographer. Here is that smithsonite that I took a moment to pause about before. This is the one that I brought today, clamshell smithsonite. This in shortwave is blue, and medium wave it's a purpley color, and in the long wave it's red. It's just fantastic. Really enjoy this. This one here, not all smithsonite obviously does this, but this is from Buena Tierra mine in Mexico. Here's a neat piece of Sterling Hill calcite, which is in New Jersey, and it also I found did the three different colors. It's not as prominent in this photograph, but the midwave is definitely a different color than the long and the short. Here's one that's got another fun thing, maybe the reason why people might want to photograph their stones in multi-wave, meaning combining them. In this case, without the medium wave, you wouldn't see the calcite, or I'm pretty sure it's the calcite here that is the blue in 310. Again, due to the fact that this is a newer wavelength, normally people were focusing on the shortwave stuff, and the shortwave is the diopside and phlogopite. On the long wave side, we really don't have much. That little pink area, I think, is just a reflection. This is a fun one. So this is some calcite with some phantoms in it from Belgium. And this got popular a couple months ago, maybe a year ago. And it is very dim in real life, which caused some criticism of the photos. But look at the color change from this. The zoning is just fantastic. You've got in long wave, you got the orange and blue. In the medium wave, you have the purple that shows up. And in the short wave, you have the yellow zoning. And the calcite on the outside really doesn't fluoresce as much. It's just fantastically amazing. This is a piece I picked up because I saw from the show that it was hydrozincite, which I grabbed. And hydrozincite is pretty famous for glowing bright blue in shortwave, as we see on the left. Now there's also platernite, which is black and non-fluorescing on here, and hemimorphite, which surprised me as shiny or as fluorescing in different colors, depending on what wavelength I had, which made this piece just really even all that much better. It's also interesting that the hydrozincite is slightly green under medium wave. I didn't bring this one today because it's a thin plate and it is fragile. Okay, an additional affecting factor other than the activators and also the wavelength that we're having is temperature. Now, I haven't done a lot of research on this. It's a newer field to me, but I have done some experiments because I'm inquisitive. So I found this really amazing Hakmonite, which is from Afghanistan. And again, the sodalite kind of family. What I found was that is the temperature goes down, the presence of fluorescence and phosphorescence increases. And I'm pretty confident that that's due to the fact that the colder it is allowing it to store the energy in the phosphorescence instance more, and it creeps back out more slowly as it's hot. And I don't exactly, perhaps someone will be able to let me know what the reason is. When it's heated, it dissipates all that energy very quickly, and there's not as much phosphorescence or fluorescence. Borrowed by request, here is a experiment that was done, or a paper that was written using this information by Justin Banks, who is the son of Doug Banks, one of the FMS um, board members, and also an FMS member himself. This we sent out to the Midwest newsletter crew a couple of months ago, but you can tell here that as they get colder, and they just fluoresce much brighter, which is very, very cool. You have room temperature at the top, then you have an oven, which is hot, and then you have room temperature um, again below that one, freezer, meaning cold but not super cold, and liquid nitrogen, which is where a lot of that really interesting reaction happens. Okay, so we again recognize that there's a lot of electromagnetic radiation pumping out of these lights. And as they get more powerful, like they are for the long wave, then they tend to get more dangerous. Keep in mind that the sun does shoot us down some UVA, and a little bit of UVB makes it through our atmosphere. But at the same time, those are minuscule, and you could still get a sunburn. So we got to be careful when we're using these, and also spreading the hobby around, that we don't get unnecessary exposure to the health risks that are incurred with the UV lights. As they go higher in frequency, of course, they do more ionization, which is the stuff that's going to cause us a lot of hassle. And so we got to be careful of that. Some of the things that can happen with overexposure to UV radiation can be skin cancer, premature aging, eye damage, sunburn, snow blindness, which is a sunburn on your retina, and immune system suppression, which is a new one that I found out. But given the uses of the ultraviolet lights in medical, which are killing bacteria and viruses, I can see why this may have an effect. So, safety for the skin. UVA penetrates deep into the skin and reaches the dermis and subcutis, where connective tissues and blood vessels are affected, resulting gradual loss of elasticity and premature aging. UVA darkens melanin quickly, but it goes away also very quickly. For UVB, it's absorbed by the epidermis, stimulates the production of new melanin pigment within a few days, resulting in a tan that may last a relatively long time. UVB also stimulates the cells to produce thicker epidermis. Therefore, together with UVA, it's responsible for the synthesis, darkening, and thickening of the outer cell layers. These are the reaction to the body's defense against further UV damage. UVB also causes sunburn. Sunburn is the result of overexposure and one of the serious factors which may increase the risk of skin cancer. However, even doses of UVB not high enough to cause sunburns may increase the likelihood of developing melanoma and non-melanoma skin cancers. It also stimulates vitamin D. So this is why we got to be careful. For the eye, however, as UVA and UVB penetrate the eye in similar ways. UVA is a more deeply absorbed, while UVB radiation is completely absorbed by the cornea and lens. A small amount of UVA penetrates, like we said, through to the retina. So it is under discussion whether this could cause retinal damage that manifests as health complications later in life, although, and this is kind of important here because I also hand out UV kits to kids. Among adults, around 1 to 2% of UVA radiation is transmitted through the cornea, while for children, the transmittance is strongly age dependent, starting with a transmittance of around 20% at birth and gradually decreasing with age. This made it critical for what I'll show you in a minute here, that I hand out UV safety glasses and also safety notes with all of the kids' kits that I have. So a child's eyes are more sensitive to UV and require special protection. And again, we talked about this just a second ago, but UVB rays can also cause snow blindness, which is a sunburn to the cornea. So what did I do? I went off and I found myself some UV glasses, some UV protecting glasses that are clear. That way I can still see everything properly, but at the same time, it'll protect my eyeballs. There's a lot of options online that you get from um, eBay and not eBay, but Amazon, things like that, wherever you'd find them. But the important thing is to test them to make sure they're correct. Because I bought a case of them for the kids when I was handing them out, and the first case I got from China, completely fake. The way you can tell is you can take your UV lights and shine them on a rock, and then move the glasses in between the light and the rock. And if the rock no longer glows, it is blocking that UV. If it continues to glow, you've got some garbage. Similarly, I don't like to get my hands all exposed all the time to the higher frequencies. So if I'm going to play around with some rocks or take a look at them closely and whatnot, in addition to the glasses, I'm going to wear these UV gloves. And again, these are CE marked, so we can tell that they've been tested, everything like that. Just make sure that you get stuff that are quoted as UV A, B, and C protectant. For additional information, please see the supplements to UV Waves Volume 44, Number 4 for an expert discussion of the effects of UV on biological systems. This is a perk of the membership of the Fluorescent Minerals Society, and I went and took a look at this one, which was from 2014 here, quite a while ago. As a matter of fact, when they started the Fluorescent Minerals website or Facebook group, and you can go back and get those and take a look at a lot of good information if you join the club. Now, that is all of the sciencey kind of stuff that I have to present to you. The remainder of what we got going on here is about basically impressive minerals from around the world. Just taking a look at some of the variation that you can see in the habits and also the reactions, combinations, all kinds of stuff. So this is more of like a glorified show and tell, just so everybody's aware. I have them in 13 different areas, 10 if you want to count the US as a single location. And so we will start off in alphabetical order with Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a fun one. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming out of here. Afghanite, which is the blue mineral that you'll see right up here, if you can see my mouse move. I have my first difficult pronunciation of Huyn, which is the orange that you see there, Gonardite in light blue, and calcite in red. This one's shown under medium wave. In long wave on the right, we have Afghanite again. It is at the top, a scapolite, which is I'm sorry, the Afghanite in this case is the orange that's in the middle, and the scapolite is the yellow, probably Marialite, but I'm not positive, and Gonardite, which is the light blue. This also has pyrite. It's a very pretty specimen shown in long wave. Here is another Afghanite sodalite combo, which I brought with me today. They have a shift in color, you can see, but the Afghanite sodalite is the orange, not the red orange, but the orange. We also have a phlogopite, which is the orange, which is right here, and calcite, which is red orange on the left side of the left image. That's shown in medium wave there. In short wave on the right, we have phlogopite crystals. These are yellow. Another fun one that you saw in the multicolor wave, I am now showing again in medium wave. This is lazurite. Also has calcite, which is the magenta and a brief intense phosphorescence. We have diopside, which is the light white blue, and phlogopite, which is orange in this. As we saw in the multi-wave, it turns to yellow in shortwave. On the right, we have a medium wave spectacular specimen of zircon and fluorapatite in purple and calcite in red. Shortwave again on the left, we have a calcite and phlogopite. Fun fact, this has spinel in there, but because we're not showing it in long wave, you can't see it. Another one I brought today, this shortwave display on the right, an afghanite, which is non-fluorescent in this case, a phlogopite, yellow, because it's in shortwave, and a calcite that's red in shortwave, also with diopside. Here's another very fun one. This is a purple kunzite, which is showing up orange here in long wave. I'm not sure what the blue is. And on the right side, we have a Hackmanite specimen with appears to be two different activators in there or material combinations. And this is a cool one because not only is it fluorescent, it's also phosphorescent and tenebrescent. So it stores energy in the form of a color change, changing it from light to dark purple. Very cool piece. Here's another similar one, but has some more combos on it. This is a hackmanite, sodalite, and gonardite, which is blue in this case, with phlogopite. The diopside in this is light blue, and the calcite is purple under medium wave. On the right side, we have a long wave tenebrous and scapolite, which is cool because this one turns, instead of purple, but turns darker blue when it is exposed to the UV light. Here's a combo with more than one wavelength. And the reason that this is in here, sorry about the photo quality, a little blurry, but the orange would not show up without the long wave. So under shortwave, all you would see is a yellow and also a yellow, a bright yellow and mariolite, and then the blue white of gonardite, but you wouldn't see the orange. So I combine the long and shortwave for this one to make a more spectacular display. On the right, we have phlogopite crystals, yellow, of course, in media wave in this case, and it's on a pink calcite. Very interesting specimen. On this page, we have some dravite tourmaline crystals, which are yellow, on a matrix, which is blue. Not sure what the matrix is. That's something you'll find out in a lot of these. People they'll figure out what exactly it is that's the main component, and then the rest of them may go unspecifically. I guess they didn't specifically figure out what the rest of it is, but through associations or looking up on MinDat with the other colors and things that are known to associate it with it, we get closer and closer. So this is a never-ending battle. On the right, we have an Afghanite, which is orange, and those small specks right around here, and the big bright calcite in red. This is in medium wave. Gonardite is also the light blue, which we see in some small areas on this face of this particular mineral. Here's another super pretty one. This has got Afghanite, and which is not shown here, but it does have calcite, which is the bright red, diopside, which is the grayish white in the centered, and gonardite, the light blue. It also has pyrite. It's very interesting to see how a small change in geographic location can create different reactions from similar minerals. Again, this is all about what kind of activators are actually in the mineral, which get picked up as the mineral's forming. On the right here, we have another Afghanite with calcite in red, gonardite light blue, and phlogopite in yellow in this case. This is kind of similar to the previous one we talked about. Okay, Africa, huge continent. However, a lot of the stuff that we're going to we're going to basically be seeing here are coming out of Namibia. To be honest, I don't have a lot of minerals from other areas. Here's a chalcedony with slow to glow hemimorphite, and this one's amazing because it takes a while for it to charge up, which I'll show everybody in a second. This is the Scorpion Mine, Namibia. Here's tarbutite that altered to fluorapatite. The unaltered, the tarabutite altered to fluorapatite is the green color here, and the unaltered tarabutite is orange. Again, from Namibia. Here's some pedalite, which is a neat one. You don't see this very often. That's the purple there in the host stone from Namibia. Here's another one where on the right is another one where the fluorite, in this case from Namibia, is not fluorescent in long wave, which is unique. There's some feldspar stuck on there, but real star of the show in this case is the highlight opal. Here's some blue lace agate, which is pretty impressive. I have the white light version down below so you can see how big it is. And that's a pretty cool one from Namibia again. And I have some eucryptite on the right from Zimbabwe, a non-Namibia locality. Some of the other places, there are some Tanzania minerals as well, which are pretty cool. And this one I'm showing, which I've also brought, is a diopside, which is showing blue, white, and shortwave on the bottom, and the phlogopite, which is yellow on the shortwave on the bottom. Mionite, which is orange in shortwave and yellow in long wave with the yellow up top. It's a pretty cool combo, and just another one of those that displays different colors depending on what wavelength you hit it with. On the right side, we have a kunzite from a different location, this time Nigeria. I do not know what's causing the orange to purple. Those the purple and to orange there, I believe, or tan, if you will, is the kunzite part. I'm not sure what the yellow is at the bottom. All right, next we got Australia. This is the Putapa mine where the little dot is, which is a lot of the range where a lot of these they come from. They're third plane, there's Aruna, and then there's Putapa, which are all fairly close together in the giant continent of Australia, and that's where most of mine come from. Again, this is where Wellamite gets bananas. So this is the Wellamite, and these are not exclusively identified. No one seems to know exactly what's causing all of these colors. But as we get more into the hobby and more people get involved, I'm sure we will get more and more information to figure that out. But the patterns here in the way that these formed are really what's spectacular to a lot of the collectors. So I don't have these labeled individually, but generalized, you can say that Willemite is the green, yellow, green, blue, calcite is red, orange, and aragonite would be the white, blue, smithsonite, purple. On the left, you have some shortwave stuff, and on the right, you have medium wave. One interesting thing about the stuff that comes out of Australia is that a lot of it charges up over about 5 to 10 minutes of UV exposure and then becomes its brightest at that point, which is kind of a neat factor. Sort of like the hemimorphite. Okay. Another cool example of some blue in the Patapa material. Another just amazing pattern on the right. These are just fantastic. These blew my mind. I just love them. Here is an Aruna mine on the left, which is the Wellamite is the aqua green, and Dolomite in this case is red. On the right, we have the calcite, which is red, and Wellamite is light green in this case from Aruna again. Here's a cool one on the left, which is X-solution Wellamite, squeezing out all those little droplets in the stone as it's created, and a little bit of calcite. And on the right, one of my favorite third plane zinc deposit specimens. Now, this one's about the size of, I'd say, silver dollar, something like that. But just look at those cool pastel colors and banding. It's just so fantastic. I have another Wellamite with the two-tone colors there. Fairly easy to identify that one because it's not a lot of stuff going on, just the Wellamite and the calcite. But that's from third plane. And another fantastic Potapa pattern, this time from Graham the Man, Graham Fraser. Here's another cool one. This has got like a neat coating on the outside. Not exactly sure what it is, but it's just another formation with less banding. And then on the right, another example of the multitude of colors that you can find in a single stone. However, due to my status as a non-independently wealthy individual, this one is kind of small too. Now let's move to our America's Hat, Canada. Canada's a pretty cool place, and it's got a lot of really neat stones as well. I brought this particular piece of Hackmanite sodalite, which is pink orange under the medium wave. It's also extremely tenebrescent. And the cool thing about the Hackmanite sodalite from the Canada, the location here from Sundbury, is that you can bleach it out with a powerful flashlight. And so I can do some demonstrations of that in a bit as well. There's a minor bit of halite opal in green. On the right side, we've got some selenite, which was hand collected by a friend of mine named Jeff Cotter. This is cool. It's got some neato banding in there. And like I said before, the selenite's just got some really cool different formations that show up on the internal structure. This one doesn't happen to be phosphorescent. Another huge location, which is fairly affordable material, is what's called Long Lake Zinc Mine. You might see LLZ on some of the posts you might find about these. That's Long Lake Zinc, and it has these small pointillism looking like assortments of the minerals. It's really neat. A lot of them have stuff what they call as like lightning bolts, where some of the I guess aragonite or perhaps the diopside or chondrodite even um, assembles in the cracks and it makes it look like lightning bolts. This case is just a giant piece of all of the assemblage. On the right side, we have some apatite. This is another mineral that's really become popular with the medium wave because a lot of apatites are the brightest in medium wave. Now they may show up under short wave or long wave even, but they are very bright under the medium wave. So that's a really fortunate situation that we have in the narrow band medium wave. One thing I want to point out that I didn't mention before is that the reason that medium wave LED lights are making such a big difference is because in a tube situation, what you have is a lot of additional wavelengths that are not able to be filtered out. So you get with a shortwave tube, for example, you get a lot of the if it's a 254 nanometer tube is supposed to be in the In the light, you might get 250 nanometers all the way to like 270 or something like that. It's a wider array, and that sometimes spills into the mid-wave category, and it makes them not as obvious. Whereas the LEDs are a very narrow band, and they're filtered very well. So you really just see what's exposing the mid-wave stuff. You won't see a lot of the additional excitement of other frequencies. Here's another long lake zinc mine on the left, which is fantastic with its little potpourri of spots, and a very cool medium wave mionite, mionite, neonite, another mispronunciation, my apology, scapulite group, and calcite, which is magenta in midwave, which is why I presented it. That's super neat. Plus a mystery in blue. Could be prehnite, maybe it's tremolite. Nobody's quite sure yet without doing X-ray spectrography. Here's a calcite plate that came out of Canada from Quebec. And this, a friend of mine named Nad Ram has just found on the side of the road, and he offered to sell it to me, and so I bought it. It's cool. Not exactly sure what's in it other than calcite, but it's neat. And one of the neatest things here is the Red River floodway in Winnipeg, and it creates some selenites that have some of the longest lasting phosphorescence that I've ever seen. It's amazing. These will glow for a couple of minutes in visible light. If you're using a camera with a really good low light sensor on it, it can pick it up for much longer. In fact, the Hackmanite that I showed earlier with the temperature experiment that I did actually was still glowing up to, I think, 25 minutes. I have a video of this on my website. It's an incredibly long time. Sometimes not as perceptible to the human eye, but when you have a camera with a sensitivity, you can still see that it is glowing above the ambient. These selenites from the Red River floodway do a similar thing. They're just fantastic. Here's a diopside and phlogopite from Canada. And then again, we have on the right side, this agrolite that we were talking about earlier in shortwave, in this case, still very pretty, along with some albite, deep red, and just a nice collection to have. In midwave, the rest of the colors don't show up, but the agrolite is quite bright. Another potpourri of Long Lake zinc on the left, and a very interesting on the right, sea green fluorite. This is purple showing up in the long wave like we have it, and the barite is orange. I'm going to try to speed up my pace just a little bit. We're going on 50 minutes here, and I'm trying to get through the rest of these, and we're only on Canada. So here's a sodalite from variety Hackmanite from Canada as well. This is not as tenebruscent as some of the stuff from Afghanistan, but it is, or Greenland, but it is definitely interesting from Davis Quarry in Bancroft. On the right side, we have the meonite, scapulite group, and wernerite, or which is I think these are interchangeable at this point. The wernerite is an older terminology for it, so the names have changed somewhat. And then again, diopside or tremolite, not exactly sure in light blue. This is a polylithionite, which I haven't shown before, which is coming off yellow, kind of a dim one, and microcline, which is a dark red under shortwave. The interesting part about this is that little lilac thing is called leucophonite, which is primarily known to come from Greenland, but Canada has it too. And I was lucky enough to just have this little tiny piece growing on the what I bought for polylithionite. On the right, we have some naturalite, which is a really cool bladed habit coming out of Mont Saint Hilaire. Here's some more of that wernerite, which I guess we could call whatever scapulite group is now in vogue. And on the right, some diopside in white blue. China has a lot of very interesting mineral specimens that come out of it too. One of the most interesting, like we were talking about before, is the pyromorphite, which is, you can see on all these little broken pieces of the plumogumite, because the pyromorphite pseudomorphs into the plumogumite or morphs into the plumogumite. So they're pretty cool. And like I said, I bought a couple more recently. That is under medium wave. Long wave on the right, fluorite and quartz calcite. Calcite is being the red. Eucryptite is also a popular mineral coming out of China. It is really neat looking. I love its deep red color. It's kind of a darker, but is definitely a beautiful specimen. And on the right, we have pink fluorescent sandwich biscuit calcite, which was popular for a while. Really neat looking kind of wouldn't say poker chip, but definitely hexagonal or so habit there. Here's another eucryptite specimen that I got from Dale Hewen, who's a cool guy, and it's just a really neat formation in there. The calcite is magenta on top, and the eucryptite is red on the bottom. And finally, for China, we've got some heidenite, which is a really neat, rare specimen from there, and it glows orange. Heidenite, I believe, is green under visible light. Otherwise, it would be a different sputamine. Okay, Greenland. This is just like people are just nuts about Greenland material right now, and it is pretty expensive. Again, this is where some of the tugtapite comes from and other things that people are really interested in collecting. Other than that, though, we do have a tenebrescent hackmanite that I brought today, which is extremely tenebrescent and can also be bleached by white light. So I brought that. That's a pretty cool fist-sized piece. On the right, we have some albite, uh, analcime, sodalite, and urinal activated green in this soup of rock. Now, under medium wave, you can see some tiny leucophonite from Greenland here, but you can't see it under shortwave. This one is what they call a fantasy stone or a fantasy rock, which is really cool. It's got the tugtapite in there, jacalavite, analcime in blue, sodalite in orange, and some arfvedsonite. Urinal activated green, rounding out the colors there. On the right side, just a huge chunk of tugtapite and some polylithionite in yellow. Another cool one, here's some medium wave I found with an epistolite, which is non-fluorescing, but the other stuff around there, I believe there's sodalite and urinal ions, some urinal salts going on there, but I'm not sure what that magenta is. Again, sometimes you buy these things for other minerals and you shine a light on them and you're like, whoa, that's cool. That's going in the fluorescent case. On the right, we have some more analcime and sodalite. This one is one of my favorite stones that I have. It is 7 different minerals. Tugtapite red, jacalavite, whitish blue, bluish white rather. Analcime is blue, sodalite on orange, and naturalite in green, which is the duller green, and urinal activated is the more bright green, and 7 is the polylithionite, just a little piece. On the right, we have sodalite, red sodalite from Greenland. Not exactly sure why they call it red sodalite. Doesn't look red to me other than in shortwave here. It is also tenebrescent. Now, Mexico. This is a cool one for a lot of calcites. A lot of calcites and stuff coming out of there. However, also halite opal. That's a pretty one. The platernite, like you saw before, with the hemimorphite, which is an interesting color, and hydrozincite. We have some wonderful phantoms from they call them phantom butterfly mariposa calcite. That's a popular one due to the whatever was in the wall or in the post stone that it was attached to originally. This is the underside. The top on the outside is actually sharp crystals, but they don't glow because they're coated in hematite. On the right here, we have another just fantastic calcite, and the blue is some sort of caliche again. So this has got that blue added on when we normally would just have a calcite of yellow, orange, and red. Here's a similar one without the caliche. This is just the yellow, orange, and red from Mexico again. And on the right, we have some aragonite. So that's a fun one. Those are light blue, white to green. Also phosphorescent. This calcite here from Chihuahua, Mexico is fantastic and is very phosphorescent. Just the way that it's has formed here has caused several different colors. And an interesting crystal of fluorapatite, which we see down here in this like little purple and shortwave. And in its host stone, which I'm not exactly sure what it is, and a little bit of halite opal. Now to Russia. I like Russia a lot because it's got some unique stuff and you don't see them all that often. So I was looking in a friend's shop around here and found this holtite. Now that's not what's fluorescing. I'm not, I mean, we weren't exactly sure at the time, but now what we're thinking after some research on Mindat and other places is that polylithionite is the yellow down there and the holtite is the light blue, which is happening up here in this stuff, and then sputamine in the darker blue. Still only verified by me and not a scientist. On the right side, we have a really cool titanite, which is dim brown, and apatite, bright pink and medium wave. Like I said, apatite's a fond of medium wave, and an unknown yellow green. On the left here, we've got mermanite, which is I believe, the blades in here, and I brought this specimen. And then we have some sodalite, hackmanite, and orange, urinal ions. And again, I don't know what the rest of the stuff is. Looks like we got a little bit of blue in there too. On the right side, we have some viaumite. Viaumite. I wish I was better at pronouncing these things. It is red, which is down here at the bottom part, and some sodalite hackmanite, which is the orange part. Fun fact about this is that the viaumite is water soluble and toxic, so this is one you don't want to lick. Now from Sweden. So I have a good friend in Sweden named Leonard Borg, and he sells me a lot of really cool rocks. Also, Martin Hendricks. I don't know if you know any of those guys, but they are pretty neat. And so I got a piece of blue marigosanite from Martin Hendricks, and the red is calcite in this specimen on the left. On the right, we have a really cool assemblage of different looks for the same minerals that we see in other places. In this case, we have sphalerite, which is bright yellow, which we would expect in this case. Wellemite is a green, it's kind of dull. The calcite is a pink here under shortwave, and the hydrozincite is a dull blue. The only way you see bright colors on the hydrozincite that they have there is if you crack something open or if you find something that hasn't been exposed. Here's another assemblage of the same minerals, but in a different color, also from the Hasselholt mine. Very interesting how geographic, I guess, differences in geography can create the same minerals with different color traits. So this is the sphalerite in yellow, which is kind of a golden yellow. Wellemite is green again, and there's some copper and silver in there, and calcite and hydrozincite. On the right, we have a location called Garpenberg, and that has some calcite and wellemite, calcite being red and wellemite green. The one on the left here is interesting because it's calcite and probably kymrite, which is the teal color from Jacobsberg mine. And on the right, we have a John Baumite, which is orange. However, most John Baumite you find would be a purple color, and I believe these are an arsenic mineral. So that's another fun poisonous one. Don't lick that. Again, back to when you find stuff that you didn't think was going to glow, but I have this orthopinachiolite, orthopinachiolite, which is the non-fluorescent black stuff. But I saw this in my collection and I hit it with a UV light, and look at that circle of what is scapolite and red calcite. And on the right here, I think this is the last one from Sweden. We have some caterpillatite, caterpillite, and microcline in red and an unknown blue. One more. So in this case, we've got the calcite red svabite in yellow orange and kymrite again in the light gray, light blue. This is from Nordmark, Sweden. Here on the right side, we see the John Baumite in purple as we normally see it, and dolomite in orange. Okay, we're down to the US and we are at an hour. I will try to make these pretty quick, but I have quite a few slides, I believe, still. In Arizona, we have some magnesite. And that's in pale green, chalcedony in the brighter green. On the right, calcite red, caliche orange, add in color again, and some sphalerite, except for sphalerite in this case is some mint green, some light green. Purple passion mine in Arizona, a famous one. We have some caliche again, adding orange, Wickenburgite, which comes from Wickenburg, Arizona, usually, or was identified there first, in red, and the minty green wellemite. It's also phosphorescent. On the right, we have some Valentine's Day smithsonite, which is blue and red, Valentine's Day, because it's got a little heart in the center there, from the King Ainsworth mine in the Chiricahua Mountains, southeast Arizona. Calcite red, fluorite blue, and caliche yellow here, almost a red, white, and blue, Maricopa County, and another King Ainsworth mine with smithsonite, hydrozincite, and this case, the little white spots are powellite. Here's what looks to be a piece of pie, but is actually a calcite center and aragonite blue and green on the outside from Helvetia mining district. Again, this is a really cool one under long wave. The sphalerite here is orange and extremely phosphorescent. This is from Miller Canyon, Arizona. Purple Passion Mine is another famous one from Arizona. Here we have calcite, of course, in red, fluorite in blue, and the willemite in that minty green. And from Yuma County, Arizona, we have calcite, fluorite, and willemite again. Same minerals, different looks based off of the fact that they come from different places. California. It just occurred to me that I didn't include any bonitoite in there, which is their state stone, but instead travertine. We have some travertine, which is the phosphorescent and kind of browny orange mineral, and also a unknown coating in blue violet again. Also a little bit of aragonite in there. We got some halite, not halite, but halite, the salt on sagebrush. This one's a super cool one, very bright orange. Here's some calcite in orange on a matrix that's non-fluorescent. All you see there is the spots is dust. On the right, we have some wollastonite, aragonite, and an unknown blue from Desert View Mine in San Bernardino County. We have some scheelite here, is the little white spots on top. The aragonite, which is the green-blue coating kind of in the center here. Some caliche again, adding some additional color on the orange, and the halite coming through with the green. This is Princess Pat Mine. On the right side, we've got that location in San Bernardino County that I cannot divulge, but it in medium wave has some fantastic colors again. Some albite microcline is the magenta, and the calcite is purple. Also, a little bit of uranium activated aragonite, according to rumor. Here's another piece of that same material, but this is under shortwave on the left. Wollastonite is yellow. Interestingly enough, the wollastonite from this under midwave often is a peachy color. Feldspar is magenta, and some uranium activated aragonite in green, mainly visible through phosphorescence, according to rumor as well, and the unknown blue, which could be scheelited due to some associations nearby. On the right, we've got some dumortierite, and that one is from the dumortierite deposit, Alpine, San Diego County. I included the thermally altered hydrozincite because hydrozincite normally under the shortwave and whatnot is bright blue, but this is a weird yellow color under medium wave. And this was found near a fire, and so the theory is that the hydrozincite was thermally altered. We also have some smithsonite, which is not appearing here, and a little bit of calcite in red and pink. On the right, we have some long wave hydriolite, which is a variety kurtzite. That's the yellow green. These are tiny little pieces. Another fun one from Desert View Mine, willemite green, calcite red, aragonite blue gray. Similarly, we have some calcite and aragonite on the left, but they are different colors, and the wollastonite is yellow. Here's a medium wave calcite from Hydra Springs, which has got two different colors due to the two different activators at the times when the stone was forming. And another cool one, not being green in this case, we have some Manhattan Mine opal. This is from Knoxville, Napa County, California, bright yellow under long wave. Rounding this out with the fluorescent mineral capital of the world here, we have New Jersey. This is a wollastonite in yellow and a calcite, which is not very visible in this one, but the urinal ions are present under the shortwave. It's just a fun color combination. And on the right, we have another fine assemblage that is fairly common that people like. We have hardystonite, which is the blue we talked about. Clinohedrite, which we haven't mentioned yet, but is an orange color and is moderately rare, so people seek that with some willemite green as well. This also has some metallic franklinite and andradite garnet with it. These are small pieces because, again, I'm not independently wealthy, but they are the sought after pieces of rare mineral that come from the New Jersey area. So we have esperite on the left and we have some amargosanite on the right. Again, different habit. This is a little bit more, I guess, not a coating like we'd see it from Sweden. From New Jersey, here is a solid chunk. Here's some cuspidine, which I've got under medium wave. I point that out because the next slide we have it under shortwave, and under medium wave, cuspidine is purple, which is a really cool color. We also have a little bit of willemite on there. On the right, we have a piece collected by a famous person, some Johann Martins, and the calcite here is red and white with some prehnite, which doesn't fluoresce, from Millington Quarry. Perhaps you'll remember the presentation that Johann made from this recently at a Cincinnati Mineral Society presentation show. event. Here's that cuspidine again in orange, which is shortwave. So you can see the difference. Purple under midwave, orange under shortwave. And not because they're from different locations, just because of the wavelength. Calcite red, green willemite on there. On the right side, we've got some mostly solid sphalerite, which I believe they call mahogany sphalerite. Very cool amount of colors with a little willemite in there. Here's a chloraphane, which I really like because it will eventually lose its ability to phosphoresce. It is teal, and it also has a phosphorescence in teal as well. It will actually lose phosphorescence and fluorescence the more you expose it to it, more you expose the mineral to UV light. So I like to keep that in a box where it doesn't get exposed all the time. On the right, we have some golden sphalerite and some cleophane, which is the sphalerite variety that turns into a blue-purple color as it gets more intense light applied. Also with some talc and minor willemite. Here's a willemite crystal, which is kind of sought after too. This is under midwave, which is pretty neat, and the calcite is red. On the right, I have a large face of clinohedrite, which is the orange, willemite in green, andradite, and franklinite. Those do not fluoresce. Here's a golden sphalerite with the cleophane, and you can see the sphalerite converting to cleophane. I have an interesting video on this as well, where I get the light closer and closer, and you can see it become more blue. On the right, I have a hardystonite and willemite and calcite combo, which is very aesthetically appealing, and I brought that today. One of the prized possessions I have is the 4-color calcite, hardystonite, willemite, and esperite all together. Esperite is very difficult to photograph because it's very close in color to the willemite, so there's a lot of tips and tricks that we have to put together to make these things look right. On the right, on this particular slide, we have some Arsenian apatite, which is the faint orange, I believe, right over here. This is a lot of colors in it. Then we have calcite, which is bright orange on this side, willemite green up top, microcline in the red. It's supposed to say microcline, and a carbonate coating down here, likely a aragonite light blue. Franklin Mine, New Jersey. We have another piece of clinohedrite with hardystonite, the clinohedrite being orange, of course. That's a lovely one. And just for funs, they don't always have to be super colorful. Here's some fluoroborite on calcite. And finally, rounding out our locations, New Mexico, just alphabetically. Here's some caramel calcite. A lot of these are going to come from the Deming mining area, where I had a friend that collected a lot, and so I purchased a bunch from the Mahoney mining area. So caramel calcite in orange, hemimorphite in blue, and aragonite, which is phosphorescent. On the right, we have opal on top, which is the green, aragonite, calcite in red, and this is also from the Mahoney mining area. Another of the calcite, caramel calcite in yellow, orange, and opal with aragonite in white, a little bit of white poking through here. Again, same mineral, same location, different assemblage, looks different. Hydrozincite on the right from the Mahoney mining area as well. A lovely calcite orange red with aragonite and opal green. On the right, we have caramel calcite again in a different formation, yellow orange with aragonite and hydrozincite, light blue on top. This is a beautiful thunder egg, which is amazing, that was from the Florida mountains near Deming. And just check out the patterns in that. Brought that one today to have a closer look at under shortwave. And one of my favorite words, yttrofluorite, light yellow under this particular color. Now this changes purple, white, and yellow depending on the wavelength, but I've only shown it here in short. And that is the end of the presentation of minerals and where they are from. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out.